The courtroom was quiet as she stood before the judge, her tone calm but determined. She explained that she was seeking additional financial support from her child's father. With his growing popularity on social media, it was clear he was doing better financially than before. Meanwhile, their child, their firstborn, was getting older, and life was becoming more demanding. School, activities, daily needs, everything was expanding, and so were the expenses. She wasn't asking out of greed, but out of necessity, hoping the court would recognize the need for updated support to match their child's growing world. She took a deep breath before responding to the judge's question. About current child support, he's only paying $100 a month, she explained, noting that the amount was set years ago, shortly after their son was born. At the time, the child was just a few months old, and while it might have seemed sudden, she made the decision based on how he behaved during her pregnancy. Even when I was having complications, he was out running the streets, she said. There were other women, and it was clear to her that he wasn't ready to step up. Now, over a decade later, their son is 13, and she believes his father can afford more. His social media tells a different story. Vacations, flashy posts, wads of cash, even an engagement ring he recently showed off. He's living well, she said plainly, just not contributing enough to his child's life. As the conversation unfolded, emotions were held in check, but tension lingered beneath the surface. When asked about her relationship with the father's current fiancé and the other mother of his child, she didn't hold back. I don't have issues with anyone, she said carefully, though she admitted she wasn't particularly fond of any of them. The judge, staying neutral, reminded everyone that outbursts or personal attacks wouldn't be tolerated in court. She remained calm, assuring the judge she was composed and not there to create drama, just to seek what she believed her son deserved. I just need support for my child, she said simply. Before the judge turned to the father, she added one final plea, and I wish he'd stop dragging my name through the mud. It wasn't about bitterness, it was about respect and responsibility. She composed herself, but her frustration was clear. I've had to step up and do everything on my own, she told the judge. When he's absent, I have no choice but to provide, not just the basics, but everything our son needs. Her voice hinted at the sacrifices she'd made, especially when her son expressed dreams like playing sports, dreams that required time and money. Tensions briefly flared when she addressed the father's fiancé in the courtroom, but the judge quickly reminded her that this hearing was about support, not personal drama. Apologizing, she clarified, I just want what's right for my son. The judge gently corrected her. The support she was asking for wasn't her money, it was her son's money. She nodded, accepting the correction. Yes, Your Honor, she said. I need my son's money. That's all I'm here for. With things settled, the judge urged everyone to stay focused and respectful, making it clear that the child's well-being was what truly mattered. Before the judge could move on, she raised her hand gently, her voice tinged with exhaustion. I just want you to understand, she began. Everything falls on me. When asked to clarify, she explained how she juggled multiple jobs, working long hours, even late at night, just to make ends meet. Her son was growing fast, on the verge of entering high school, and with that came a whole new set of needs. He wants to look sharp, she said. He wants the latest clothes, he plays football, basketball, he's active, and I support all of it. Every penny, every fee, every uniform, it's all on me. What she wanted wasn't unreasonable, just for his father to contribute his fair share. I just want my son's money, she repeated, firm but composed. As the judge addressed disruptions in the courtroom, attention turned to the father. When asked why he wasn't supporting his son, his response was jarring, claiming he recently brought over diapers. Diapers? The judge echoed, disbelief in her voice. He's 13. The moment hung in silence, a clear contrast between reality and responsibility. The judge's tone shifted as she turned her attention to the father, questioning just how involved he truly was in his 13-year-old son's life. He hesitated, then blamed the child's mother for making things difficult. I don't really see him, he admitted. When pressed, he seemed confused, mentioning diapers, which only highlighted his disconnect. He's 13, the judge reminded him firmly. It was becoming clear. Not only was he out of touch, but he had also moved roughly 45 minutes away, a distance that had further strained his presence in his son's life. Meanwhile, he admitted he lived just 10 to 15 minutes from his other children. That proximity made his priorities hard to ignore. When he defensively argued that the $100 in support was still something, the judge quickly cut in. "That money is for your son, not a favor," she said, reminding him that true support isn't just financial, it's also time, presence, and effort. In the silence that followed, the absence spoke louder than any excuse. As the hearing continued, the judge couldn't help but challenge the father on his financial priorities. He had recently spent $5,500 on an engagement ring and was proudly sharing photos of vacations online, yet seemed unaware that his 13-year-old son was far beyond the diaper stage. "Help me make sense of that," the judge pressed. He deflected, blaming conflict on the child's mother and her family's involvement, claiming that everything would be fine if they stayed out of his business. But she quickly responded. Her family had stepped in when he hadn't. Her mother, though harsh in her words, had been present when he wasn't. "She says I'm for the streets." He scoffed, "But I'm not anymore, I'm engaged now." His ex, unconvinced, shot back. "I know him. He won't stay with her." Their relationship had lasted just 6 months before she walked away, realizing he wasn't ready to be a father or a partner. "How was I supposed to carry a child?" she asked, while he was out chasing other women. Her voice cracked, not from anger but from the weight of having had to do it all alone. As the conversation turned more personal, tensions rose. The mother admitted that in the absence of financial support, she had been forced to find unconventional ways to provide for her son, including starting an online page to earn income. "I have to hustle," she said firmly. "He's not helping, and my son needs things." The judge, trying to understand, questioned the contrast between criticizing the father for being in the streets while she herself was on a subscription platform. "It's not the streets," she replied. "It's the internet, and I'm doing what I have to do to survive." She explained that her son had ambitions. He wanted to play football and basketball, and she was trying to prepare for the cost. "We're living a certain lifestyle that I have to maintain," she said. When asked who we meant, she clarified, "Me and my son." While her son wasn't yet enrolled, she'd already researched the fees, around $200 just to join the team, and up to $500 including gear. The father interrupted, claiming teams provide equipment. But the judge quickly steered the discussion back to finances, determined to find clarity in the middle of emotional chaos. The judge shifted focus back to the father, growing frustrated by his lack of focus and the fiancé's constant interruptions. "Does she work for you?" the judge asked sharply, noting that the woman beside him seemed to know more about the case than he did. "Do you need to switch places?" she added, pointedly. After re-establishing control, the judge reminded everyone of the legal facts. The mother had every right to request an increase in child support, especially if there had been a significant change in circumstances. "You've been paying just $100 for 13 years, and you don't even see your son regularly," she stated firmly. "If her expenses have increased, your support should reflect that." The father hesitated, then quietly agreed. When asked about his income, he revealed he earns around $8,000 a month. The courtroom fell quiet. The gap between his financial reality and the minimal support he provided was impossible to ignore. As the questioning continued, the judge challenged the father on his long-standing $100 monthly support. "Do you really think that's enough?" she asked. He admitted it was based on what he was earning at the time, working at McDonald's, for roughly $350 to $500 a week. "But that was then," the judge noted. "You now earn $8,000 a month, and your son is no longer a baby." He agreed quietly. The conversation turned back to the child's needs. The mother detailed upcoming expenses, $200 for football registration, plus equipment, bringing the total to around $500. Basketball, she added, would cost another $300. "That's $800 already," the judge calculated, before raising an eyebrow when the mother added karate to the list. "It's starting to sound like you're piling things on to get more support," the judge cautioned. The mother pushed back. "I just want my son to have opportunities, to be active, to feel supported." But the tension in the room was rising. Between past neglect, current finances, and growing resentment, it was clear that this wasn't just about money. It was about presence, fairness, and the kind of future they each believed their son deserved. As the questioning continued, the judge challenged the father on his long-standing $100 monthly support. "Do you really think that's enough?" she asked. He admitted it was based on what he was earning at the time, working at McDonald's for roughly $350 to $500 a week. "But that was then," the judge noted. "You now earn $8,000 a month, and your son is no longer a baby." He agreed quietly. The conversation turned back to the child's needs. The mother detailed upcoming expenses, $200 for football registration, plus equipment, bringing the total to around $500. Basketball, she added, would cost another $300. That's $800 already, the judge calculated, before raising an eyebrow when the mother added karate to the list. It's starting to sound like you're piling things on to get more support, the judge cautioned. The mother pushed back. I just want my son to have opportunities, to be active, to feel supported. But the tension in the room was rising. Between past neglect, current finances, and growing resentment, it was clear that this wasn't just about money. It was about presence, fairness, and the kind of future they each believed their son deserved. With her voice trembling slightly, she explained that it wasn't just financial support she was seeking, it was peace. I need a restraining order, she said plainly. The constant harassment had worn her down. My nerves are shot. I can't take it anymore. Though their divorce had been finalized nearly 2 years ago, she said her ex-husband refused to let go. He would show up at her home in the early hours of the morning, circling and honking his horn, disturbing the neighborhood and her peace. Worse, he'd come to her workplace without warning, confronting her in front of coworkers and putting her job at risk. I could be fired for that, she said, visibly shaken. Although she'd attempted to call the police, he always managed to leave before they arrived. He knows how to avoid getting caught, she added. In addition to the restraining order, she felt that an extra $100 a week in spousal support would be fair, considering the stress and emotional strain she had endured. I don't bother him, he's the one who keeps showing up. The judge listened carefully, but reminded her that restraining orders weren't handled in this court. You'll need to file separately, the judge said gently, but it sounds like you should. She nodded slowly, grateful for the clarity. I didn't know I could request a restraining order through the police, she admitted. Thank you. With that avenue clarified, the conversation returned to the question of spousal maintenance. I believe an extra $100 a week is fair, she said confidently, though the weight of her circumstances was evident. Her hours had been reduced, part-time now, due to company layoffs, and her income had dropped significantly. Meanwhile, her ex-husband's salary continued to grow. He's been with the same company for years. Gets raises twice a year. He's doing well, really well. She contrasted that with her own reality, limited hours, lower pay, and financial strain. I don't even make half of what he does, she said. But it wasn't just about money. I raised his children. I hosted his friends. I kept the house running, clean, and whole. I did everything a good wife is supposed to do. She wasn't bitter, just tired, and asking for what she believed was fair. He's a CEO at an oil company, she added. Big salary, bonuses, perks, he's raking it in. He can afford this. When asked about her current spousal maintenance, she explained that she receives around $325 a week, though even that doesn't always arrive on time. He's late often, she noted. And I think that alone should carry a penalty. These are obligations, not favors. The judge asked about her expenses, and she laid them out: rent, utilities, groceries, and the ongoing payments for home improvements they'd made before the divorce. New siding, carpet, paneling, all of which she's still paying off, with 5 more years to go. Though her car is paid for, gas and maintenance aren't cheap. Then there's just life, she added. Electricity, water, and yes, even a little entertainment. I can't just sit in the house and stare at a wall. When they divorced 2 years ago, she had fought for the home and won it, despite his resistance. It was a victory, but also a responsibility. And with her income shrinking and his only growing, her case for increased support grew harder to deny. As the conversation shifted, the judge appeared puzzled. You haven't really mentioned anything that justifies an increase in spousal maintenance, she said. The woman leaned forward slightly, trying to clarify. I didn't choose to work fewer hours, my employer cut them. That's been a financial burden I didn't ask for. Still, the judge pointed out that most of her major expenses hadn't changed since the divorce. Her car was paid off, the home was nearly paid off, and aside from utilities, mortgage, and regular living costs, there hadn't been a drastic shift. You had these expenses when the original support was granted, the judge reminded her. Then came a legal point. Did your ex have a 401k at the time? Since they divorced in Texas, a community property state, she confirmed that she received half that was already factored in when maintenance was awarded. the judge said gently. It wasn't a dismissal, just a reminder that while her struggles were real, the law required clear, material changes to justify more support. Frustration welled in her voice as she spoke. It's not fair, she said. He gets to raises every year, I don't get any. I work a low-paying job. I have no higher education, and at my age, I'm not going to find better. I feel stuck, like I'm trapped in this life. But the judge stayed firm. Ms. Ellison, I understand your situation, but I can't grant an increase in spousal maintenance just because his income has gone up. That's not how the law works. She made it clear, even a small increase, $25, $5 couldn't be approved without legal grounds. If that were enough, everyone would come in asking for more. Ms. Ellison tried to make one last point, speaking to the difficulty of women living alone and trying to stay afloat. The judge, staying respectful, asked her directly, when you received half of his 401k during the divorce, how much was it? After a pause, she answered, about $250,000. The courtroom fell quiet. It was a clear number and a reminder of what had already been awarded. With the previous matter concluded, the judge turned to the next case. Mr. Kenny stepped forward, calm but resolute. Your Honor, I'm here to recover costs I've been carrying alone, all related to my daughter. He explained that his 9-year-old daughter had been in his full-time care since birth, and he'd been solely responsible for everything: daily needs, school expenses, and a wide range of extracurricular activities: basketball, track and field, tennis. She's involved year-round, he said. When asked if the child's father contributed financially, his response was immediate, not at all. The judge pressed further. Was the father even aware of the child's activities? Yes, he answered. But he doesn't attend, doesn't support, and doesn't help pay. Mr. Kenny estimated he spent roughly $4,700 a year just to keep his daughter active and engaged. Despite the burden, he wasn't here out of bitterness, he simply wanted fairness. I've done it all on my own, he said. And while I've managed, I believe it's time for the responsibility to be shared. When asked about the relationship with her child's father, she hesitated for a moment before answering honestly. It wasn't exactly a relationship, she explained, more like a weekend-long situationship, about 72 hours. She had been in Washington, D.C., on business when they met at a nightclub. He was attending a teacher's conference. It was more than a one-night stand, but not quite a relationship, she said, her tone both candid and composed. From that short encounter came a pregnancy, one she carried and navigated entirely on her own. He wasn't there during the pregnancy, she confirmed. No doctor visits, no support, nothing. He hadn't shown up at the hospital on time, and there had been no DNA test to establish paternity. He doesn't believe he's the father, she said, explaining that his doubt was based on race. He's the only Caucasian man I've ever been with. Despite denying paternity, he had sent messages and even the occasional happy birthday text, gestures that hinted at acknowledgement, but fell far short of responsibility. She continued, explaining that over the past 9 years, the father had sent occasional messages, birthday wishes, and brief check-ins, but never any meaningful support. If he truly didn't care, I don't think he'd send anything at all, she said. But I've never seen a single dollar attached to those texts. When asked if he signed any official documents at the hospital, she clarified what she meant by him being late. He didn't show up until the baby was already a week old. We were home by then. He never came to the hospital, never signed the birth certificate, and there's no acknowledgement of paternity. The judge nodded, understanding the nature of the case. So you're here today to establish paternity? Yes, she confirmed. That's the first step. I know we can't move forward with child support without it. She took a breath, gathering her thoughts. I've been doing everything alone. In my heart, I know he's the father. I just need legal recognition so I can finally get the help my daughter deserves. The man stood and calmly acknowledged much of what the woman had said, though he pointed out there were important omissions that should be considered. Yes, we were involved briefly, roughly 72 hours. That part is true, he began. But let me provide some context before we go any further. He explained that she works for the federal government, while he is a school teacher. After those few days together, we didn't maintain consistent contact. When she later informed me that she was pregnant, I had doubts, he said. Given the nature and length of our interaction, and the lack of ongoing communication, I didn't feel certain that I was the father. That's not an excuse, just the truth. I've never signed a birth certificate or any legal acknowledgement, and I've never had a DNA test done. He added, I've sent birthday messages over the years because I do care, but I didn't send money because I've never been sure of my role. If paternity is confirmed, I'll step up. But until then, I didn't want to make assumptions. The man continued, explaining that while he is a high school teacher earning approximately $60,000 annually, the woman involved earns significantly more due to her federal government position. She's in a much better financial position to support a child than I am, he said. Notably, he referred to the child as her daughter, making it clear he still harbors doubts about paternity. I'm not saying she's definitely not mine, he clarified. I'm willing to accept the possibility, but without a DNA test, I can't be sure. She claims I'm the only Caucasian she's been with, but I have no way of verifying that, and she hasn't always been truthful with me in the past. He also revealed something he believed was conveniently left out of her version of events. I have a newborn son with my fiancé now, and that matters. I already have responsibilities. The judge cut in at that point, reminding the woman not to interrupt and reassuring her that she'd had her opportunity to speak. Now it's his time, the judge stated firmly. The man emphasized his certainty about the paternity of his newborn son, explaining that his fiancée has been exclusively with him for over 3 years, making him confident the child is biologically his. He pointed out that, even as a newborn, the baby resembles him. Shifting focus, he argued that the woman pursuing the child support claim does not genuinely need financial assistance from him. According to him, her income from a government job far exceeds his teacher's salary, and she's financially capable of supporting the child independently. He suggested that the court proceedings were not driven by necessity, but rather by bitterness or unresolved emotions, implying that jealousy was the real motivation behind her request. The judge appeared caught off guard, especially by the suggestion that a biological father's financial responsibility could be waived simply because the mother earns more. Tensions rose as the man accused the woman of trying to interfere with his relationship with his newborn son and fiancé, but she dismissed the idea without hesitation, firmly stating she couldn't care less. The judge reminded her not to let him provoke her, to which she quipped that she had left one button unguarded, admitting she still had a whole control panel. The judge, maintaining authority, warned that she was the only one pressing buttons in the courtroom, and that any physical outburst would lead to an immediate dismissal and removal by the bailiff. Refocusing, the judge emphasized the real purpose of the hearing to determine paternity. Both parties agreed that confirming whether the man was the biological father of the 9-year-old girl was their shared goal. The man made a sarcastic remark about the courtroom not having a DNA kit on hand, prompting a sharp exchange. But the judge maintained order, clarifying that DNA testing is handled separately, and reminding everyone to stay respectful. Even if emotions were running high, the judge laid out the next steps. The case would be reset pending DNA results. If the test confirmed he was the father, child support would be ordered starting from that day. The man asked to respond, explaining that their involvement was nothing more than a drawn-out one-night stand, and they were never in a committed relationship. He added that he didn't even know she had given birth until about a week after it happened. The woman immediately called out, "Lies," and tried to interrupt, but the judge warned her again about those emotional buttons she kept pressing. Calmly but firmly, the judge addressed the man's point, stating she had reviewed the Texas Family Code and found no law that said a person must be in a relationship in order to be obligated to pay child support. He protested further, saying he believed she had told him she was on birth control, though he admitted his memory might be faulty. The judge then responded clearly, regardless of whether there was a relationship or whether birth control was mentioned, none of that changed the legal responsibility of a parent. At the heart of this case is a 9-year-old girl who deserves proper support not just from her mother, but from the man who may very well be her father. The judge made it clear the court would reset the case to allow time for DNA testing. If the results confirm paternity, child support will begin immediately from that day forward. However, if the man is not the father, the mother has every right to return to court and petition whomever necessary. The judge clarified this wasn't an attack on her character, it was simply a matter of doing what's right for the child. After all, a child deserves full support from both biological parents, no matter the circumstances. Both parties agreed, and had no questions, and the judge reminded the mother that the child must be made available for testing. She confirmed her daughter was already present, ready to proceed. With that, the court reset the case, hoping that when they return, both sides would come back with clearer heads and calmer spirits. Back in court, tensions flared again as the judge asked whether the DNA test had been completed and if there were any issues. Thankfully, there were none. But as expected, things took a sharp turn when asked if the two had spoken since the last hearing. What started as a simple disagreement quickly exploded. She claimed he had called her, offering to smooth things over with an inappropriate request, hoping intimacy would resolve the issue before the test results came in. He denied it, of course, but she insisted it was his usual move, saying his lie posture gave him away. The judge, caught between sarcasm and disbelief, questioned how much someone could really know in just 72 hours. Still, the man stood by his claim. This wasn't about the child, it was a vendetta. According to him, she wasn't seeking help for their daughter. She was seeking revenge for a weekend fling that ended nearly a decade ago. As the court session continued, the father tried to cast doubt by questioning the timing of the paternity case, claiming it was suspicious that she chose now, 9 years later, just as he had a new family, to bring him to court. The judge acknowledged the curious timing but turned the focus back to the child. The mother, composed and unwavering, explained that she'd simply realized she no longer needed to bear everything alone. She wasn't seeking support for herself, just what was fair for her daughter. If he's taking care of his son and fiancé, then he can help his daughter too, she asserted. Confident in the truth, she reaffirmed her belief. He is the father. As tension thickened, the bailiff confirmed the DNA results were ready. The mother, already mentally preparing for justice, jokingly asked if he had his cashier's check ready. The judge quickly reminded her to hold off. No payments could be made until the results were confirmed and the order signed. The man, clearly unsettled, asked whether there was an appeal process if the results confirmed paternity. But with that question hanging, the reality was clear. He was running out of excuses. In a last-ditch attempt to escape responsibility, the man argued that the timing of the case felt like harassment, claiming it was an effort to sabotage his current relationship. He suggested he might even file a restraining order against the woman, believing, rather creatively, that such a move would exempt him from paying child support. The judge, unimpressed, shut that idea down immediately, clarifying that's not how any of it works. With tensions high, it was finally time for the DNA results. The court paused for dramatic effect as the bailiff read the outcome. There was no probability that he was the father. Shock rippled through the courtroom. "Wait, what did you say?" the woman asked, stunned. The man smirked, reminding her of her past certainty. "I'm the only white man she's been with," she had claimed. Now, the truth stung. Flustered, she questioned the legitimacy of the document, calling it sketchy. But the facts were now undeniable, and the case had just taken a turn no one expected. Still in disbelief, the woman clung tightly to her version of the truth. She insisted the results were suspicious, claiming they looked sketchy, simply because they came in an envelope, and expressing distrust over the man's connections, citing that his uncle was an attorney. The judge, puzzled, reminded her that she had already confirmed the DNA test was done professionally and fairly. The swabbing was proper, the staff wore protective gear, and everything seemed legitimate at the time. Yet now, she refused to accept the outcome. "He is the father," she shouted, trying to override the science with her conviction, but the judge had heard enough. "Are you seriously trying to argue with a DNA test?" she asked, incredulous. "He is not the father. That is a fact." The woman grew frantic, repeating over and over that he had to be. He was the only man she had been with during that time. But the truth was already out, and it wasn't on her side. The case ended not with justice denied, but with a hard truth delivered, and a courtroom left stunned. All she wanted, she claimed, was to see the numbers, the probability that he was the father. But the answer was definitive. He was not. The DNA results had spoken, yet she refused to accept them. It was him, she argued passionately, almost desperately. "He has a tattoo. I was with him and that tattoo for 72 hours. I know what I saw. I know what I felt." But the judge had heard enough. "You are not the father," she stated, clearly, turning to the man, informing him he would not be ordered to pay any child support. The woman, Miss McKenna, was told she had the right to petition someone else, but she insisted again there was no one else. He had to be the father. Then, softly but with impact, the judge suggested another possibility. Maybe there was someone else during those 72 hours. The courtroom tensed. "That's not shade," the judge clarified. "It's just a fact. He wasn't with you every minute. There were hours unaccounted for." The truth settled heavily in the air. For all her conviction, DNA doesn't land in the end, neither did time. He leaned back and said, "You know what? Maybe I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you truly don't remember the other guy. With the pace you were going back then, it's possible. So maybe you weren't lying, maybe you really believed I was the only white guy." She cut him off, demanding, "Just answer, me. Do you have a tattoo on your private part?" Calmly, he replied, "I have a birthmark that kind of looks like a bird." "Maybe." She wasn't convinced. "No, it said Mississippi Long." "Do you have that tattoo?" The judge had heard enough. "Okay. This is what we're about to do. At this rate, we're not getting anywhere. I've already stated the DNA results he is not the father. This case is dismissed." The judge continued, "You're welcome to bring another case. And if what he's saying is true, and you truly don't remember, you can bring another one after that. The court is here to assist you." With that, the courtroom fell silent. "If there's nothing further and there shouldn't be, you're both dismissed." She muttered under her breath, "Hell no, it shouldn't be." And as she walked out, she couldn't help but throw one last jab, "Whatever. You got a tattoo. You got a tattoo."